today to talk about stewardship. And when we talk about stewardship, we also use the word cultivation at the same time. So stewardship and cultivation. And I want to focus more on stewardship because that is something that is really, really easy for volunteers, board members to participate in and make a huge impact. And I'm going to share with you some real life situations that have happened with other clients and my past employers. And it's just, it's a way for any board member, no matter where you live, no matter what the socioeconomic background is, everybody can truly participate in this. So first, who do we steward? Or I got to move my screen here. Okay. Who do we steward or cultivate is a good question, because there's always the tendency to want to educate everybody about our organization's mission. Everybody should support it. And, the short answer obviously is our current donors and our prospective donors. But we also have to define what a prospective donor actually is. And this is where a lot of even professionals in the nonprofit industry get confused. And they put a lot of energy in areas where they don't really have to. So a prospective donor is somebody who has an interest in your organization's mission. So if we were to take Tomaquag Museum, for example, it could be Indigenous culture and history. It could be arts and culture. It could be museums. It could be education. It could be environmental justice, or even I'm escaping, but the nice thing about Tomaquag Museum is it checks a lot of boxes, and they can be interested in environmental justice and not really be aware of Indigenous cultural history. And that's okay. We will focus and align the environmental justice side with donors and talk to them about that and help them bridge that gap. The second component is they have a connection to the organization, and this generally means a connection to a person. So a staff, a board member, many times it's Loren, but that personal connection or that bridge into that organization is a big qualifier. And then capacity to give. And so when we talk about capacity to give, it's not just rich people, because unfortunately, not all rich people are predisposed to be philanthropic. So you have to qualify it even further. They have a capacity to give, but they have a propensity for philanthropic behavior. And so in taking this into consideration, development professionals look at this and say, okay, where would I find a possible donor for my organization? And the easiest answer is, well, I'm going to look at other organizations like my organization. So other museums, other Indigenous museums, other educational institutions, so on and so forth. But the biggest, or the thing that it makes it, the biggest driver is the personal connection. And it's, the saying of people give to people, and then the ... of that are affiliated with good organizations. And so this is where you as board members are really critical to connecting people to the mission of Tomaquag Museum and the programs and whatnot. So first, we have to keep in mind, prospective donor has an interest in the organization's mission or your sector's mission, a connection to the organization, and capacity to give. I will say, because I only see a little square, and if a question or comment comes to mind, just put it in the chat, and then we'll get to it after the eight or so slides that we have to cover. So what is cultivation and stewardship? And cultivation, and I have some images to help. Think of planting seeds. We're going to plant our seeds, we're going to water it, we're going to nourish it and help it to grow very healthy. And then hopefully it will bear fruit, and that's your cultivation. It's generally first-time gifts, and there's a caveat to that, but just remember, first-time gifts, cultivation. Stewardship, it's how are we caring for your donation? You make a donation to an organization, any organization. Are you properly thanked? Are you updated? Are you informed of how your donation is being used? And obviously, we need to align your donation with their interests, and that's the best kind of stewardship. So I used the environmental justice alignment factor earlier. It's, oh, guess what? We are going to incorporate technological, ecological knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge into our new museum plans. You know, and then expressing more of the cultures and giving them an idea of how it really truly relates to the mission of Tomaquag Museum. Stewardship is also more aligned with repeat gifts or renewed gifts. We want people to renew their gifts after they have given for the first time. And we're going to talk about that, why it is important. This is real data. It's only up until 2021 because that's just how data works. I haven't received any updated trend lines yet. But the top graph is new donor retention rate year after year. And so somebody gives a donation to your organization, and here are the chances that that new donor is going to give a gift in year 2. And as you can see, the latest trend is only 18.6. 18% of donors are going to make a repeat donation in the next year. That's a small percentage. And then the repeat retention rate, so these are current donors who are going to repeat your donation again. It did go up a little bit in 2021, but it's still overall down. And the reason for that is just like sales. If you heard the sales model before, it's very expensive to acquire a brand new customer. Same thing with development and nonprofit organizations and donations. It's expensive to acquire a new donor. There's a lot of energy that goes into it. There's a lot of expenses that goes into it. So if we can treat that donor as if their gift is extremely important to our organization, we align with their interests, you've increased their likelihood of making that repeat gift. And every time they make a repeat gift, they are strengthening their interest into the organization. So it's a win-win-win. And what I'd like to, I'll talk to Denise and Katie about this, but metrics in measuring performance for donor retention is you're looking at a 3-year average of your number of donors, your number of renewed donors, your number of lapsed donors, and your high-low average gift amount. So your number of donors should go up, your number of renewed donors should go up, your number of lapsed donors should go down, and then your high-low average, those should go up as well. A lapsed donor is someone who gave, you know, in 2020 and hasn't given since, and they all of a sudden come around and they give another gift in 2023. So that's just an example. And those are fun when you're able to get those. So how can you as board members, well, this list is pretty much for everybody. The organization does most of the work behind the scenes, but the things that really impact donor retention are thanking your donors quickly. So you make a donation and you're going to get your thank you letter from Loren right away. You're going to report on the outcomes. Here's how we've used your money. Good news, we're hiring a new a museum educator. Because of your restricted gift that you appropriated to the education program. Segmenting communications, and BL, you and I have had sidebar conversations about this. So you have folks that are only interested in environmental justice. We're only going to tell them about environmental justice because sometimes that's a hard leap. Now, Tomaquag Museum is a small organization and doesn't really have the the bandwidth to do that at this moment, but it's definitely in the future. So just keep that over on the side for a second. I've highlighted making personal touches like phone calls and handwritten notes, because that is the part where volunteers, even other staff members, can make a big dent in donor retention. And simply picking up the phone and saying, thank you so much for your donation, or sending an email from your personal email. Hi, I'm a volunteer board member. Thank you for your contribution to 401 Gives, for example. Other options that we could do is survey our donors to understand what their interests are, their satisfaction level, what they'd like to receive, how they want to be communicated with. Offer them recurring gift options, which we do already. And I refer to the peer-to-peer campaigns as well. 401 Gives is a great example of a peer-to-peer campaign. And can't wait for next year on that. This is just a sample script of what a phone call would sound like. Hi, I'm a volunteer board member for Tomaquag Museum, calling to thank you for supporting our 2023 Honoring and Culture Celebration. And you can insert, or the annual appeal or 401 Gives. As a supporter, I also wanted you to know that our museum campus website will go live in August. Be sure to check it out. Again, thank you. Your donation enables Tomaquag Museum to advance its mission. And it's as brief as that. 90% of these phone calls will go to voicemail, because who answers a call from someone they don't know? So the nice thing is when our donors check their voicemail and it's just a plain old thank you from a volunteer, it is nothing but positive. It's nothing but a positive experience. And then when you do get that one person on the phone and you say, hi, I'm Amanda, I'm a volunteer board member with Tomaquag Museum. I'm just calling to say thank you for your recent contribution. It's usually met with deadpan and then followed up with, you're calling to thank me. And then, so it's a great opportunity for you as a board member to have a conversation with a real life donor and ask them, so what made you give to Tomaquag Museum? Why do you support it? What are your interests? And you can always share your interests as well as to why you're serving on the Tomaquag Museum board. But that's just a sample. As we get into this stewardship practice, you will be provided with all the materials that you need so that you're not, winging it per se. You'll get a script, you'll get a call list, you'll get sample conversations of how things might go, to really take any kind of ambiguity out of it, and then to, of course, answer questions before you dip your toe in that. But I inserted this slide. It's a very small client that I had this past spring. Claggett Sailing. Claggett Sailing is an all volunteer run organization. The board does all the work. And what they do is they offer sailing experience to handicapped sailors. So it's adaptive sailing per se. So they give the training, the coaching, they have a boat grant program where they give the boats, they host regattas, so on and so forth. And they're a big training outfit for the Paralympics. So they participated in 401 Gives in 21 and 22, and I have the results there. And this year, they raised a lot more money, a lot more money. And how they did that was through these stewardship tactics. We divided a list of 147 names that were year-end appeal donors. And we did this in February, launched it on Valentine's Day, like Show Me Your Love campaign. Year-end appeal donors, brand new donors to the organization, and all the donors that had given through 401 Gives in the past 2 years. Board members split them up. They got their packet of information and their scripts and whatnot. And it didn't take long for people, and this organization is based in Newport, People donors were very happy to hear, not only from the organization, but they were happy to hear from a volunteer board member. It's one thing when a staff member calls you and says, thank you. The perception from the donor is, okay, it's your job. Thanks for calling me. When a volunteer board member calls, it's a completely different story. For a couple of reasons. A, it's not your job and you're not getting paid to do it. So it shows your passion behind the organization. Secondly, board members automatically come with a bit of cachet. I mean, you're the bigwigs, you are the board of directors, and that comes through no matter what size the organization is. So Tomaquag could easily replicate this. Organizations all over the state replicate it, all over the country replicate this. So what I would propose that Tomaquag Museum do, and this is kind of a combination of building up for the campaign, this is a combination of helping activate some of those strategies within the strategic plan of increasing boards participation, your education, the development program, it kind of contributes to everything, is 3 to 4 times a year, we'll have a stewardship activity. So for example, we just had the honoring event. And wouldn't it be great to divvy up that list among board members who are willing to make those touches, just to call folks up who bought tickets or sponsored or whatnot, call them up just to say thank you. And that's it. There's no ask. You're a volunteer board member calling people to say thank you, to show that you appreciate their contribution. That's just an example. Another one would be after the year-end appeal, and maybe the other one after the 401 Gives campaign. Research shows that the more personal interaction, and personal is one-on-one, and I don't mean fancy mailings that have your name on it. It's a personal engagement, will not only ensure a repeat gift, it will most likely result in an increased gift and several gifts during the year. And those people, when you start seeing folks that give donations more than once a year, they probably want to become more involved in your organization, serve on committees, even the board someday, so on and so forth. But if you think of a donor like your career ladder, so as your donors become more invested in the organization, they now want to make sure the organization succeeds and the mission continues. So it really is the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy. Impacts of board member participation. I talked to the board member cachet. It really does maximize that. I'm serve on a board just because I preach this a lot. I know that it can seem very important. I have friends of mine that serve on little tiny boards, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just a board member. They don't really know who I am. And it doesn't matter. A donor wants to hear from the board member, because at the end of the day, it is the board of directors that are responsible for the organization. Your executive director is the management, but the board of directors, just like in a corporation that has a board, same thing. Corporate governance is the same no matter what. It signals to the new donor or the prospective donor that they're important. Not only that they're important, that your organization is worthwhile, because you as the board member are putting yourself out there and saying, hey, this is my organization that I support and I believe in it. You as the board member will gain immediate feedback, which is so important. You help to strengthen the relationship between the donor and the organization and increase the likelihood of continued and increased support. And then you have agency for the organization's success. There are probably more benefits and attributes that I could list, but those are kind of the big things. The other thing to remember is, as board members, you're familiar with the budget and where the money comes from to advance the mission. Most of it's through philanthropy. It's through donations and grants that fund the mission of Tomaquag Museum. So until we get that diversification of revenue a little more spread out, philanthropy is an important thing. So I would encourage a serious investment of time and energy into securing that revenue stream. And again, I've been on that platform for 27 years, so it's easy for me to say that. And then, so, you know, just a general ending slide of, will you participate? Will you help Tomaquag Museum in this endeavor? Will you champion it among your fellow board members? So with that, I'm going to stop the share, and I don't know if there's anything in the chat, and we can have a conversation. Oh, hi, Ben. So I don't see anything in there. So comments, questions, anything that I didn't talk about that you want to know about? BL, hit me.
Awesome. Yes. Fantastic presentation. Very simple, succinct. I'm riled up. I think it's an incredible opportunity. These things seem so simple and basic, like a simple phone call, which most of the time, 9 times out of 10, goes to a voicemail. So you're basically just talking a message to a voicemail to say, hey, thanks. When I get those, I'm like, someone just called me and say thanks. What? That's all. What? Like, how do I get more of that? How do I, and how to become more, more involved? It's like a no-brainer. And the fact that it's not about asking for money. It's like, right. Hey, you did this already. You're thanking, or you're being thanked. I'm geared up. I mean, it's 6:30 on a Monday, but I don't know how to make calls right now. But I would definitely like to get involved in this and get some reps in making calls and whatnot. So please let me know what I can do there.
Great. Great. Amanda, Ben, any comments, questions? Sorry, I didn't see you sneak in, Ben. So hopefully you didn't miss too much. As I said, I recorded it, so that way, for those that aren't able to participate, they have no excuse now, because I will share the presentation. But it is really easy. It is that easy. And the reason why people don't do it, it's a little time consuming, and it's not so much time consuming on your part, because you can bang out 20 touches in a half hour if you're organized. You have your scripts and everything all organized, because most of those are leaving messages and following up with a quick email, and then reporting it to Denise so that we can enter that in the donor database, because we want to have that information. Last time this person was touched, BL called them to thank them. So we can have that conversation with them. It's like, oh, I know one of our board members called you, so on and so forth. And that's it. It's the time consuming on the staff side. Go ahead, BL.
Another question. I mean, I give not on a consistent basis to the schools that I've attended, and one of the metrics that they use is participation, like alumni participation as a metric to either they use that in collateral to help get new donors, but also in admissions tactics and things like that. Is this similar, where you can say a high board participation rate, or this how many donors, like those metrics help get grants and stuff like that too, or how does that?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and for this organization, it is probably more important, particularly that we're in a very expensive capital campaign. Traditionally, those capital campaigns are made possible because you have a high-powered board that are going through their Rolodexes. And yes, I just aged myself, of making calls and saying, hey, give to my organization. By design, the Tomaquag board is not like that by design. So, but it doesn't mean we can't impact it through these touches and these efforts. So that's what I like to talk about when I'm talking to a major donor prospect or a foundation. And in the fact that we do have 100% participation in the capital campaign with our board, of course, that is important. But if we can go above and beyond and say, hey, we have 100% of our board playing a role in the stewardship of those donors, stewarding those relationships, that's big. That shows that everybody's invested.